We are here with Carol Anton, and introduce your friends.
All right, this is Bob and John, right? And we're here to talk about our experience of awakening and being here as a companion with Jesus to bring about the divine plan. That's our mission. And we're extremely happy about doing it. And I'm just really excited because I've just met John, and he is amazingly awake and dealing with Jesus, and Jesus told him to teach through the movies. And I just love movies. So, John.
Thank you, Carol. I'm happy to be here with you. I've been asked to tell my story of awakening,
Yes.
which I'm happy to do, but let me just frame it in context that the mind is full of concepts. And when sharing my awakening story with you, I'm reluctant to do that so as to create yet more concepts within anyone's mind about how it should be or what's right or what's wrong. Everyone's awakening is absolutely unique. Jesus tells us in the Course that it's highly individualized curriculum.
Totally.
So if part of what I tell you resonates with you about my story, great. If part of it doesn't, then throw it out.
All right, may I intervene here a second? When you said the Course, are you talking as per se like the Course in Miracles?
Yes, the Course in Miracles.
Okay.
He indicates in the Course that everyone's curriculum is highly individual.
Totally true.
And what is the Course from? I mean, where did the message come to be printed in the book? How did it come about? Do you know?
Sure. Well, Jesus transcribed it to Helen Schuckman.
Okay.
In the 70s. Helen was a psychologist. She and Bill Thedford were the recipients and the scribes, so to speak, of the Course in Miracles. Came to her over a period of 7 years, and then a couple of supplements came after that.
Neat. So you're out there providing that information through the Christ of you for others to see and to gather the information.
I'm simply living the Christ in Christness, so to speak.
Right, sharing the light.
That movement of love happens spontaneously and effortlessly.
Yes, that's so true.
So
That's
three
so
of
true.
you are doers of the Course in Miracles.
That's right. We attest to that.
Okay.
Jesus is a friend of ours.
So John
That's the
was
truth.
talking about the Course. Go further about the awakening.
Well, I'll just give you real quickly. I was born to Methodist missionaries and spent some time in South America and grew up in the Methodist Church. Soon after I got out of high school, I was done with the church because I couldn't reconcile the condemnation and the guilt and purgatory, and none of it made sense. So I went out in the world to find myself, so to speak, and enjoyed a great deal of worldly success. When I was young, I was an athlete, always played on winning teams, wasn't the greatest student, but went out into the business world and had great success as a businessman. And I was one of those people who was kind of always all in. If I was going to do something, there was no holding back. I would go completely. And I did that in business, and whenever you put that much attention or focus into something, you have success. But as I approached my 40s, I realized that nothing I had ever pursued had ever brought me peace.
Yes.
No amount of happiness, no amount of relationships, no amount of sex, no amount of food, no amount of accomplishment, nothing had ever brought me peace. So I had a great deal of success in business. I sold a business, and all of a sudden found myself without kind of my identity anymore because I wasn't the businessman. So that started the inner process of looking at the discomfort within and knowing that if I ran down any more roads, I could find whatever I wanted, but I wouldn't have peace. So I started the kind of inward journey.
It's not outside your body.
Yeah, no. The kingdom of heaven is
not in
within.
this world. It's
Yeah,
not in this
that's
world.
right. So I started looking for truth, and I didn't know where it was. Course in Miracles didn't show up with me for a couple of years. I started with some things like I had to come to it through science. because I was really invested in the world and thought the world was real. So I went to science and got to the mind and got to quantum
Bob
physics,
is
which
there,
quantum
too.
physics says, hey, the world's not really what we think it is. It's not real. And from quantum physics into the David Neil Donald Walsh series of Conversations with God, which really served to loosen my idea about God and think, wow, maybe this, God's not this mean person. Everyone's, like us,
Right.
as people, we created God in our image, not the other way around.
Right, a Yahoo moment.
Yeah. So, about 24 months ago, I started having a series of mystical experiences and miracles that just kind of started happening well, I wouldn't say spontaneously. My wife and I were in a fight one day, and I actually hit her. And
No judgment, I
and I
apologize.
prayed that night and said, probably the first time I had prayed in a long time, said, I don't know what, I need help. I was so frustrated because I just never had found peace. I'd kept trying to find it and create it and make it and never found it. And in that shame and humiliation and guilt over having done that, I really prayed earnestly and said, I don't know if they're God or I haven't found it, but I need help. And almost immediately, help showed up, and I started having miracles and mystical experiences that I never could really explain. But they were just happening, and they were going, and we all live our own experience, and we think everyone else is kind of having a similar experience. So it didn't ever occur to me that these were greatly significant experiences. They were revealing for me, and they had insight. So I kept following those, and I got connected to a little group called Oneness.
Here locally?
Yeah, here
The
locally.
Oneness Blessing?
Yes. the
Yes,
Oneness
I
Blessing.
love them.
So got connected to Oneness, and the miracles kind of kept happening. And through Oneness, I was guided to go to India. They had one of their monks come over and do a little presentation, and I was in that room listening to this monk, and it was so clear to me that everything that had ever happened in my life was designed to get me in that room that night.
Isn't that cool? Nothing's a
There was so
coincidence,
much-
right?
There was so much clarity.
Cool.
And I went unconscious that night in the room and had another mystical experience. And awoke from that realizing I had to go to this ashram of theirs in India. And I didn't know what it was, but I had to go. I would have cut a tree down and whittled a canoe and paddled. And that was very unusual for me.
We love
I was
determination.
the Beverly Hillbilly of spirituality. I knew nothing about spirituality.
How bad,
Nothing
yeah.
whatsoever. Well, between the time of deciding I was going to go and going, I had to have shoulder surgery. And I had had the same surgery on my other shoulder 7 years before, and it had been brutal. I had found out that I was allergic to all narcotics,
Oh my.
so I couldn't have any painkillers. So I was very much dreading this surgery. It took over a year before I could lift my arm up over my head. So I had to have the same surgery on the other shoulder, same surgeon, the whole
Oh my
thing.
God.
So I went
And
in.
you drive a 5-speed, right?
Yeah. So I went in to have the surgery, and had the surgery. Went to the Oneness Blessing that night, and then went home. Now all these are symbols. Understand? I give none of these any meaning, but they had meaning at the time because my
course.
mind needed them to have meaning and believed they had meaning. So I went to the Oneness Blessing, went home that night, and I actually was able to go to sleep, which was unusual. I hadn't expected that. And then I was woken up from a dead sleep at about 2:30 in the morning, and it's the first time I heard the voice. And the voice said, "Get up." And it didn't just say get up, it was moving the body as it was speaking.
You're getting up now.
That's right. So as I got up, and then it said, "Put your arms over your head." And with that, both of my arms raised completely. All this bandaging, everything went up over my head. There was no pain, there was no discomfort.
Don't you love it?
It was beautiful.
You love it, right? Woo.
And it occurred to me that weeks before, as I'd started on the path, maybe months before, I'd said, I need a miracle. I need some proof. I'm a skeptical guy. I need proof. And I want you to bring a miracle and bring it in a way. It doesn't need to be, I can't deal with a little one. I need one where there's absolutely no
That's
doubt.
right.
No doubt whatsoever. And as my arms went up over my head, I knew that had been the miracle of proof that I had asked for. So I yelled to my wife, who's asleep. She wakes up in a panic, thinking, oh my gosh, what's wrong? He's in
I
pain.
know, right?
And we celebrate the miracle. So
Aww.
the next day I go into the physical therapist, and they said, well, all we want you to do, they asked why I wasn't wearing the sling. I said, I don't need it. And he said, all we want you to do is swing your arm in a little circle. And I
Right.
said, well, I think I can do better than that. And I raised my arm up over my head, and the guy went white. he thought somebody was pulling a joke on him. So
Yeah,
anyway,
right.
3 days later, they finally took all the bandages off, and the stitches had all completely healed. And that was supposed to take like 10 days. So they took the stitches out. I didn't have to do any of the physical therapy. It was just...
Oh, isn't that cool?
That's fabulous.
That is
That
in
is
miracle,
so
isn't it?
Of course. So
That's cool.
these things were happening, and that was probably the first time when I was like, there's something really to this. I ended up then, I was just starting the course about that time. And like anything else, by that point I was very present and I was alert. So I was looking for things that were coming into my awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And the course popped up like 3 times in a span of less than a week, one of which was through the first girl I had ever kissed in the 6th grade.
Oh, you're kidding.
And she popped into my life to mention the course and then disappear.
Don't you
Wow.
love
So the Holy
it?
Spirit used that symbol to, anyway. So
Yeah, aww.
I got the course and started studying the course. And it was resonating with me right away. You know, it was speaking to me in a way.
Me
I just
too.
knew, oh,
Mhm.
finally, the answer is here.
Exactly. That's
It's
how I
here.
felt.
The questions I forgot to even ask.
Yeah, so I took the course with me when I went to India to spend a month in the Oneness University ashram.
Neat.
So I was still doing my lessons, and the lessons that I was doing, and the ones that the teachings that were being presented at the ashram were just like gears meshing together. It was like so perfect. I was like, oh, this can't be, you know, this is not happenstance. This is not
Right, right,
coincidence.
right.
And I was so out of place over there. Here are many that were professional spiritual seekers that knew all about spirituality and had a broad vocabulary of chakras and all kinds of stuff. I knew nothing.
Right.
I was clueless as a bag of
So
rocks.
you had a crash course.
Yeah, so, you know, we'd be doing a meditation and I would have to poke someone and say, well, which chakra are they talking about? Finally, the guy drew a picture of the body with the chakras in my notebook so I would stop troubling. So they were doing all these rituals and stuff, none of which really resonated with me, but the teachings were resonating because they were mirroring what was in the Course. So continued having these mystical experiences on almost a daily basis, and I didn't say anything to anyone because I felt like I'm like the kindergarten kid. If I say something, they're going to be like, man, you know, that's kindergarten. I was embarrassed. I didn't know what to, you know, I was having this. Little did I know at the time that they were of immeasurable significance. And
Right.
They were incredibly significant.
Have you written about any of them? Yeah.
No.
I
So,
wish that you would, though.
Well,
And,
this is his first outing, Carol.
Okay.
so I had, along the path, started meditating. I went down to Jessup, Georgia to learn the meditation technique Vipassana, which happened to be the one that the Buddha had started a long time ago.
Nice.
And that was the first time I was put in a place to look at my mind, literally, because it's no speaking, it's no talking, it's no nothing. You can't write, you can't do anything. You're just with your mind.
Breath.
And of
Breath.
course, I was convinced I was crazy. Absolutely convinced.
Your
Now, the
ego is talking.
Yeah, the meditation stuff started before the Course showed up. So I learned this meditation technique, and by the second day I was ready to come home. The mind was like, you know, we got to get out of here. The mind knew, oops, something's up here.
Right.
But I stuck it out. I had some great advice from a friend. He said, if you want to leave, everybody's going to want to leave. Just stay one more day. And I kept doing that. Well, by the 6th day, I had finally been able to do the technique. And it's where you're feeling the very subtle sensations in your body, and you move the awareness around your body, up and down, and you kind of sweep it. Well, it occurred to me that I was having to effort a lot. I was having to use a lot of my mind to do that. And I thought, gosh, I'm trying to stop thinking. So I just kind of let go.
Right.
Right.
And I had an image of a barber pole, you know, the
The
spiral.
twirl, right.
And all of a sudden, I felt the
Your-
subtlety in my body move around
Your
me like a barber
Kundalini
pole.
was awakening.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it was moving around my body in a barber pole. And then I thought, well, I wonder if I could go up one side and down the other at the same time, and it started happening.
Oh my goodness.
So all of a sudden I got really excited. I was like, wow, this is fun. You know, the ego was going, wow, you're the greatest meditator ever. Big deal out of it.
Actually, that's pretty advanced for your first consideration.
So, nonetheless, I had nothing to do with it. But
Right.
Right.
finally, it occurred to me that this was happening outside of any conscious awareness that I had. And that brought up fear, which, you know, I had to look at, because I was like, well, I'm not doing this, then how's this happening? And with that, the word love was spelled on my chest.
Aww.
It was
Did you have a
so-
mirror to see it?
No. I mean, I felt the word
Right,
love
I'm teasing, but
be
you
drawn
know.
on my chest. So
Right.
I went on, had a fabulous experience. On the way home, I was listening to Eckhart Tolle's book, Power Is Now, and it was landing in my being in a way that I had never experienced. Before it had been thought, consideration in the mind, it was now landing experientially and just really resonating.
It was dinging your chakras.
Yeah, so I came home. I still don't know what chakras are, and it doesn't matter.
They're those little,
neither.
they're those little barber poles,
You don't need
man.
those. So my mind is empty of concepts. I don't need it.
Nice.
So I come home.
I
and
understand.
I'm telling my wife about this experience, and I said, "Honey, I don't know what's going on, but there's someone else in here. I don't know what it is, but there's something else kind of going on." So then we'll jump back to being in India.
So how did she take it, though? I'm interested.
She didn't quite know what to make of it.
Right.
I was always much more open-minded and kind of ran at things. She was always much more. Now she's since gotten into the Course and has expanded her consciousness
Right.
significantly. But,
Great.
and she ended up going to learn to meditate because she saw the benefits for me, and she thought, well, you know, maybe
Right.
this is worth me doing. So,
Hey, y'all.
Right. Good
I,
morning, brother.
So we'll jump back to being in India. I had continued to meditate at least 2 hours a day since that Vipassana. And I had had lots and lots of stuff come up. And as I got to understand the metaphysics of the Course, that this is all in our mind, that we, our own identity, our bodies, the world, is nothing more than an idea.
A grand illusion.
And then, so anything that existed within my being that was fear had to be nothing other than an idea. It had no more reality than the reality that I gave it. So very early in the Course, I started the relationship with Jesus. Now you can call it Jesus, you can call it the Holy Spirit, you can call it your Antaryama, the higher self. It doesn't matter what you call it.
Right.
The names don't matter.
Exactly.
So I started asking in meditation to see, you know, my issues, my stuff. And memories started coming up and all those things, and I was willing to look at them. Very early, Jesus said to me, you have to be willing to look, because they exist in your consciousness only because you have put them there and given them value. And I said, why don't you just take them away? Because I can't. You put them there because they're important to you. I'll show you what they are, but you have to let them go. And I was a little reluctant. I was like, well, he's like, no, they're just ideas. They can't hurt you. And he said, I tell you what, I'll take you to the movies and I'll show you one of my movies. And I'll show you that it's easy, that you needn't worry. So in meditation, in my mind, a theater appeared, and there were 2 seats, and Jesus and I sat down, and the crucifixion played, his crucifixion. And he laughed and he laughed and he laughed.
Really?
And he said, now watch this. And he told me what experience he had during the crucifixion. And I was so moved. I mean, something that I had had so much fear about and so much, there's Jesus laughing at his own crucifixion. And it was so obvious that if he could do that, what could it be within my mind that I couldn't look at and laugh?
Right.
And he said, I'll always be here with you. You never have to watch by yourself. And he tells us in the Course, you can take my hand and we'll walk through the ring of fear to the miracle that's on the other side.
Right.
So I took him at his word. Everything he said in the Course, I was willing to take him at his word, even if I didn't believe it. When he said early on, you don't have to believe it.
Right.
I was like, okay, well, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. So in meditation, we started looking at my stuff. And he said, we'll start, and you need to trust that I'll bring them just in the order that you can handle. What good would it do for me to bring up the nastiest memory you have and overwhelm you and have you run away? He goes, I'll always bring them in the perfect order that you can handle them. So you never have to do anything more than you're capable of. So we started doing that in these meditations and was having great success with it and seeing them and being able to release them and let them go, and not only seeing the memory, but then tracing back the beliefs that were way underneath it.
Yes.
So we were diving deep into the mind. So whenever I would ask a question, he was always gracious with the question, but he would say, let's look at what's underneath the question. What has to exist in your consciousness for that question to even arise? Because the answer is always really buried in the question itself. So anyway, we kept diving deeper and deeper and deeper. So I found myself in the third week of this month-long sojourn in India, and I said to Jesus, okay, I'm ready. Bring it. If you remember Neo in the Matrix, when he finally gets it and he tells the Sentinels, just bring it. You think you've got something, come on. So I had told Jesus, okay, I'm ready. And he said, okay, I'll be here with you, but you have to do this on your own. I can't do it with you, but I'll be here beside you. So with that, I sat on the sidewalk outside this temple in India, and the stuff started coming up. And it not like anything I had ever experienced. It started with my story, and it started to come up, and it got nastier and nastier and nastier. And at this point, I had already cultivated the ability to witness it from a distance and look at it from the seat in the movie, not having to be on the screen.
Right.
But as it came, it got progressively worse and worse and worse. Worse. It was the nastiest, most disgusting thing I'd ever seen or experienced in my life.
But once it's done, it's done.
But it came, and then it stopped. And I thought, I remember having a sense of relief. And there was just silence for a little while. And then it started again, but this time it was nice. It was like, okay, you've seen the bad side of the story, so now the ego wanted to try and endear itself and say, okay, I can't pull that on you anymore, so you're now free. I'll be nice and we'll get along, and all this kind of stuff.
Buddy.
Yeah, buddy. So,
we all need
as
good
that
friends.
started, I almost within my being felt a relief, almost like a movement kind of towards that. And I just felt almost like arms around my being just kind of pulled me back so gently. And with that, the ego realized now the bribery wasn't going to work. So it started again with the condemnation and the judgment and all the things that I had done, trying to throw the guilt at me and how bad I was and all that stuff. And that went on for, I don't know how long, another good long stretch. And as I witnessed and witnessed again, it finally stopped. And I thought, whew, I'm glad that's over. And Jesus said it's not over. And with that,
okay,
we were beyond my story, and we were into the rage of the ego, the one mind that is the ego. So my attachment with it was gone, but now I had to look at the the whole thought system of the ego.
Right, like
We
the
all
source.
oftentimes say, my ego. We should never call it mine. It's just one
Right.
that has manifested itself in 7 billion forms. But nonetheless,
Right.
So as I moved past my story and went into the rage and the hatred of the ego, there are no words to describe that kind of
Ecstasy.
rage
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh.
incredible disgust. And, the ego said, I'll kill you, I'll kill your family, I'll kill the whole world and just make another one. I can make as many bodies as I want. I mean, it was. I cannot put words on the visceralness of that experience, and that went on for a period of time. But it was way past my story. It was just pure raw hatred, and then it stopped, and then came again this kind of nice try and endear itself. Okay, well, would you, how would you like to play now? Kind of thing, and again that sense of don't go there. And there had been very little thought in my awareness as I had witnessed this for hours, and then finally the thought came, and it came out of this deep sense of peace that I saw in the fullness of my being the trap that the mind was. There was no way out. It's like a maze with no exit. You go around one corner and all the rest of the maze changes, because the mind is nothing more than illusions and images, and we try and trade negative illusions for positive ones. Well, the positive ones are no less illusionary than the negative ones.
Right.
And in that recognition that there was no way out of the mind and that it was just a trap, in the fullness of my being, I just came to the realization that I was trapped and there was no way out, and I gave up. And with that, the peace of God descended on me in the most liberating, beautiful. It was it was so compassionate, so loving, as I was lifted up out of that
Bedroom,
trap, that
right.
identification of the mind, and stillness came in that it's just beyond words, and it was so wonderful. It was so peaceful. So with that, I kind of come out of the meditation, and I've been sitting on this sidewalk outside this temple while people are going by. World War III is happening within my being.
Right.
And people are walking by having no idea of what's happening.
Nobody threw you any coin?
I came home later, 3 months later. I walked into a friend's house who was watching the movie Little Buddha, and I walked in right at the scene of the Buddha's enlightenment, and it was exactly what I had experienced.
Isn't that cool?
Goodness.
And there
Wow.
was the witness coming to say, okay, do you see what's happened? Because again, in my naivete, I was like, okay, well, that was a pretty big meditation, and I loved this sense, but I didn't have a context. No one knows what awakening is like. So the last week while I was in India, it was just really joyful. I was really there was 160 people there from 27 countries. Half of them were sick as could be.
Right.
Because the ego was making them sick as a defense against the truth, as they were seeking, their own awakening, their own destiny of truth.
Through Krishna's.
So I was just kind of floating, and I hadn't said anything to anyone the whole time, because I was just like,
I'm going crazy.
yeah, well, not am I going crazy, but I was just thinking I'm a rookie and I don't know
Right.
what's happening, and I was embarrassed.
And there you go, placing judgment. How
Yeah.
dare you?
So finally, that last week was just so joyful. And after that Buddha kind of meditation experience, I went into the temple, and they were having this thing with pictures of these two gurus. And as I sat in meditation, I saw the universe in my mind, and I went unconscious. And I remember my head hitting the marble floor. And I have no idea how long I was out. But when I came to, I could open my eyes, but I couldn't move the body. And the ego was going, move, move, move. And I was, a lot of fear came up because I was trying to move and I couldn't move. It's like I was paralyzed. And Jesus said, can you see you're not a body? You can't move the body. You're not a body. And the ego was like, move, move, you're just faking it, bada, 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 bada. And I couldn't move. And Jesus was just, it was again this just sense of peace. I'm not a body. I'm not a body.
Wow,
I'm
that's
not a
wonderful.
body.
I hate to speed this up, but it's been quite a few minutes, and I would like to know, since you've done your ascension part, why you are here in Asheville showing movies to provide the freedom that you have gained when you went to your India and you went to Atlanta. Now, why are you here in Asheville providing your unconditional love to bring Christ?
Well, Asheville is my current home.
Okay.
I'll go anywhere I'm instructed to go.
Okay.
I'll go to any corner of the earth, but for now it's here.
So you're still listening to Jesus because you know the light is the way.
Yes, but it's a little bit different experience.
Okay.
Jesus is not an other.
Right.
He's not outside of me.
Right.
Jesus and I are one. The Father and I are one. I am the Word. I am that I am, however you want to put it.
And we are one.
Of course. That is only true for me because it is true for you.
Right.
It's not a truth that is unique to this being.
Mm-hmm.
So, nonetheless,
That's fabulous.
I just move as I'm moved. I don't keep a schedule. I don't.
Right, a healed mind does not plan.
Right.
That's
It allows
right.
for the divine plan.
We don't know our own
You're part
best
of it.
intent. Right.
That's right.
So how do you wake up in the morning? You just,
Well,
plan
sleep
your-
is a very different experience in and of itself. But,
Now,
um,
after all that.
How is it different?
It's not a place of total loss of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jesus tells us in
Yep,
the Course
I'm
that
going.
the mind never sleeps.
Right.
Well,
right.
John Mark, my battery is about to go,
Okay.
and
well,
I appreciate we'll add more later with Robert and Carol and a brother who is in the sidelines, Tony. And we will say thank you for listening, and we will get back with more.
Thank you.
God bless, Creator protect, and everybody have a bright day.